Another kind of handy and important thing is that we now, when we enter students here for this particular class, we can also do the other thing, the other way around. On the student layout, we can show which classes this particular student has been attending, because we have that data now. So let's make this layout a little bit bigger, and let's see if we can figure out how to do that. Let's first go into File Manage Database to check out our relationships, and we will find out that basically our students table is still pretty lonely. It's not yet related to anything. What do we want it to be related to? Well, basically we're storing the attendance details in the attendance detail table. That's where we store which class this student has been attending, basically. So we're going to want to relate this one to the student. Also this one, because this one stores the exact class, and this one stores only the ID of the class name is in here. So basically these three tables contain information that I now want to relate to my student. Like we said before, using the anchor buoy method, we do not want to create relationships that go from over here to over there. We do not want to create a mess, so let's keep it neat and organized. Let's get these three tables that I want, and let's duplicate them right here, and let's put them up here somewhere, and let's try and figure out a way to get them all connected to each other. Now these two are still connected because they were already connected here, and that is good. And basically what I have is the first step here will be connecting the student to the student ID, which is stored here. So I'm going to want to create a relationship between this one and this one, like something like so. I'm going to put this out of the way. I'm going to put this one here. These two are already linked, so now I have my student. His ID is related to the student ID FK in the attendance detail. Attendance detail 2, let's call it attendance detail student. Let's call this one attendance student as well. Keeping everything nice and clear. Classes student. Now, how do we relate these two? Well, basically the class name is in here, the class ID is in here, so this ID can be related to this ID, and then we have a nice set of relationships that relate all of these tables nicely together. Now, from a record on the student layout, every student has an ID. I can see all the records in the attendance details for this particular student, and when we have this, we can get the class name through these relationships here. So let's see if we can figure out a way to show this data. We're going to make a portal on the student layout, make it nice and yay big. Let's start here, and let's start this one. Let's let this portal show the related records from the attendance detail student, because that was the first in our line of related tables. Do we want to sort? Nah. Filter? Nah. Allow deletion? Nah, not from here, but we do want to show a vertical scroll bar just in case there are a lot of classes. Now, which fields do we want to show here? Do you want to see whether if it was late or not? Yeah, let's see that here. The timestamp, no, it doesn't sound very useful here. What else do we need? The attendance detail, do we have any other details here? No. On the attendance table, we do have the date, we have the time and the location. That can be handy. And we have the class name. So let's put the class name first. Let's put the date, then the time and the location, and then we're going to see if the student was late or not. Do we have everything that way? I think we do. Let's see. Okay, apparently now we can see on the student's layout that the student Jane Doe has followed history, has followed English on these dates, these times, these rooms, and she was late once. looking pretty good. If you want, you can add more stuff, like you can count the exact number of classes that she's been to. You can count the amount of times that she was late. You can do a lot of stuff with this, but basically what this is doing right now is basically just displaying the well, the classes that she's been to. If you go to the other record for John Doe, we can see he has been to history and English, and he was also late once, but I think this looks kind of very similar. Let's try and see if we can create some sort of a difference, because we also always made John Doe and Jane Doe. Let's make something new here. For the 13th, I think we had 2 classes. I don't really know which ones I had entered. Let's go and see. I had one for the 15th. Let's delete this attendance so that we get some sort of a difference here. Let's go to our layouts, the students. Okay, now John Doe and Jane Doe clearly have different kinds of attendances. John Doe has been to 1 English class and it was late, and Jane Doe has been to an English and a history class and she was also late once. Okay, this is already nice, this is already good. Alright, so now we have our handy little list of classes on our student layout. So this student attended these classes. Let's see if we can do this the other way around as well. Let's go to the classes layout. This is the class of history. How can we now figure out which students attended this class? You would think that that's essentially kind of the same as what we did on the student layout, but the difficulty here is that there already is a portal here, and this lists already the different dates that you have this particular class. So it is not just enough to add a list of students, because now basically students could have attended this class in the auditorium, or this class, or this class. So basically your list here should change depending on which date you're looking at here. So what you would have to be able to do is you have to be able to select a certain date, and then you will see the attendance or the students that attended that particular class on that particular date, on that time, in that location. So basically you need to be able to select here and then see another list appear right here. The difficulty in that is that if you go to File, Manage, Layouts, no, not Layouts, I never go that way, I always go Control-Shift-D. If we go there, then we will see that this is what we're talking about right now, about the classes layout. Our classes have a bunch of details, and it's basically to this particular detail, to each detail record, that the attendance is kind of been linked to. So what we need to do is create a student portal or list on this layout, but it needs to be, it's kind of dependent on these records here. So that creates a little bit of a difficulty, because your portal always needs to be somehow related to this table here, because that's what your layout is based on. But we're talking about basically this ID is kind of the important field for this relationship. So we need to be able to get this ID somewhere here. And basically the moment we get this ID on this table is when we select a certain record. Basically we want to select a record here, and when we select this record we need to get the ID of this record on this classes in this classes table. Now how do we do this? And I made another video for this technique. It's on my channel, so if you want to look at that in detail you can do that as well. Let's go to File, Manage Database, let's go to Fields, and in the Classes field let's create a selected class. Selected class, is that the correct name? Yeah, selected class, sure, why not? Let's call that this and make it a number field. And basically what we need to do is in this field we need to be able to get the ID of the class details. So that's not very difficult. Let's go and edit the layout. Let's make this one a tiny bit bigger. Let's select all of these fields here, all of these labels there, and I'm going to move them all with my nudging with my arrow keys. I'm going to move them all a bit this way, and because if I make this a bit bigger, then these fields all move with me, so that's not what I want. And I'm going to enter a little image that I have. I always get my images on the website called Easy Icon. You can go there if you want, and you can find these lovely PNG images with a transparent background, and they are really cool to use. I'm going to use this dot green 16, which is 16 by 16 pixels, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to use that as my selection button. And I'm going to go do a button setup, and this one only needs to do, it actually only needs to do one script step, but I'm going to add another one just to be sure. So I'm going to make a script with 2 script steps. So for this button, this needs to set the ID of this record on a field in this table. So let's make a script for that. Let's make a new script, and let's call it set selected class detail on class table, so that I don't forget what it is. That's pretty clear. It needs to do set field script step, and the target field is going to be on the classes layout, my selected class field, and the calculated result is going to be the ID of the class details. So class details is there. Oops, I missed it. Class details ID. That's going to be my value, and my field is going to be the selected class ID. This sounds maybe a little funky, but you're going to figure it out in a moment. And what I always like to do here is add another script step, and that is the commit records request. Commit records request is kind of like a it's kind of like hitting enter on your keyboard, so that you really save the value in that field, because I really kind of want to make sure that it is I'm going to select this one just for fun. I really want to make sure that that value gets set, but also saved into that field. Let's hit OK, 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 and let's hit exit layout. And let's edit layout again. I'm going to add for a second this field. I'm going to add it here, and I'm going to add, which one am I going to add? From the current table classes, I'm going to add the selected class. Now you can clearly see what's going on. Here, if I hit this button, you'll see the selected class is now the ID number 3. This one is 4, this one is 5. So basically you're seeing now in the classes layout, the ID appears of the class detail. If we go back into our tables here in class detail, you will see, because I put this one in table view, it's really handy. You can see that we have 5 class details. They all have their own unique ID, and it's this ID that I'm going to be using to show that second list of information there. We were in our classes layout. Okay, this is not very handy yet, because basically I don't want to see this, but I do want to see which one of my fields is selected here. So I'm going to use some conditional formatting. I'm going to select all, using shift all 3 of these fields. I'm going to use conditional formatting here, and I'm going to add a formula which is going to look and see if my selected class here is equal to my class details ID. Basically what this says is if my selected class here is equal to the ID here, then this one is going to get a fill color of very light green. I'll show you what that does. Is if you select a certain record here, then the ID of that record gets set here. That means that this equals this one's ID, and that means that it gets made green. So basically some conditional formatting to show you which record has been selected. And if I do this, then I don't need to see this one anymore, and I can go and delete these things here. So now what we can do is we can just simply select a certain date. It gets highlighted in green because of the conditional formatting, and behind the screens, which you don't see right now, is the ID of this record is entered into and stored into a field on the classes layout. Very cool. Now let's see if we can get this second list to work. So now on the classes layout here, we get the ID of a selected class detail. Gets stored in this selected class field here. Now we do seem to have one little bit of a problem here, because the class details ID is never really stored here in the attendance record. Basically what we do here is we select a date, a class, a time, and a location, which is all the information that is here, but we never really store the ID, the actual ID of this table in here, which we might need now if we want to make our portal here work. But it's not really a big problem, because we can get, if we select those 4 values here, the date, the class, the time, and location, when we select all 4 of them, that pretty much equals to one specific record in the class details table. So what we can do is use a little bit of a trick. We can make a second table occurrence of the class details, and let's call it ID attendance, because that's what we're going to be using this for, just to get the ID of the class details into the attendance table. Let's make it a bit bigger, and then basically we're going to create a relationship, forcing it to show only one related record. Basically, if we relate our 4 fields, our date, class ID, time, and location, to this table right here, then it's going to show us only one single record. That's going to be the record whose ID we need to store in here. So let's create a new, in the attendance table, let's create a class detail ID FK, because it's the foreign key. Let's make that a number field, and basically we're going to double click this, and we're going to create this as a calculated value, and this is going to, from the ID field, enter the ID. So basically when we select those 4 values, we will be storing our class detail ID there as well, so that we can use it later on. Let's try this out and see if it works. To our layout, let's add a field. To our attendance layout, let's add this class detail field, and let's see if this works. It's not showing anything yet, but that's probably because we do need to update one of our fields here. So if we update one of our fields, for instance, we take this room and select it again, then we will see that this means class detail ID 1. If we go into another one of our attendance records here, and we update this one as well, this is also for 1. Let's see. Yeah, this is both for our English class. Let's see if we can't select another one here. On the 13th, let's select English, 10 o'clock, room 104. This gives us still class detail ID 1, which is not correct. Let's try this one. Oops. Still class. Ah, yeah, I know why that is. That's because we're gonna have to go back to File, Manage Database, and we're gonna have to uncheck the Do Not Replace Existing Value of Field, if any. We're gonna need to uncheck this one. I kind of forgot that one. Because otherwise, if there's a value in here, it's not going to update. So let's update this. Voila. Now it's working with me. We have our English, 9 o'clock. We have our history, which is the ID 3. Let's update this one. Is again ID number 1. So I'm going to put this on a different date, the 15th. History, 15. Voila. This is giving me some correct values here. Great. So now our class detail ID FK has been entered and updated everywhere. So now let's go and make our second list here. Alright, going back to File, Manage Database, let's see what we need in order to make this second portal work. We have our class details ID that's going in here when we select a record in that portal, and the same class details ID is now stored here as well in the attendance table. So I guess we're going to be needing this one. What we want to display is the students with their names, so we're going to need these two as well, let's select all three of them. I selected them all by using Shift on the Windows, and then I'm going to duplicate these objects. I'm going to put them a little bit higher, and then I'm going to put this one more like so. I'm going to rename all of them. I double click, and I'm going to call this one attendance classes, attendance detail classes, and students attendance details classes. What a name. Okay, now I need to relate this one, the selected class ID, to the class detail ID FK on this end here. And let's see, this I think is looking pretty good. Let's try this out. So let's go back to our classes layout. Let's edit the layout, and let's see if we can add a portal here like so. Let's make it about yay big. And now the tricky part, which table occurrence are we going to be using here? Now we want to display the students here that attend a certain class, and that information is stored in the attendance detail table occurrence, because that's where you have one record per student. So let's use that one. We're not going to use anything here except the show vertical scroll bar. And okay, now what do we want to see here? We might want to know if the student was late, and we might want to know the student's name. So let's put this one there so that we know which students were there and which ones were late. Let's see if this already works. We have a John Doe there. We have a John Doe and a Jane Doe here in this history class. Let's go to the English class. There we have a Jane Doe who was late, and we have a nobody here. So we have one here, and 1, 2, 3. We have 4 records. Let's go and check this out if this is correct in our class, our attendance details. We have 4 records here, so they are all showing. This is looking pretty good. On our layout classes, we might want to add, because it's not clear here what we're going to be seeing here, so we might want to control drag this label here. We're going to put it on top, and we're going to call this one student, and then we're going to control drag it over here, and then this is going to be late. Okay, so now we can see all our classes. And for every single date that has already passed, obviously, we can see whether basically which students were there. If we want, we could add a count of students. We can do a count of the amount of students that were late, and we can store all of that stuff here. So if you want, you can take this quite a bit further than this, but this is pretty basic, pretty simple to kind of I'm gonna do this file manage layouts to kind of throw this one quickly in here so that it's a little bit organized. What do we have here? We have a layout for our student with some student information, and we can see which classes this student has attended. We have a layout for our classes, and we can enter classes there. If you want, we could enter a new one called science, for instance, and we could give it a date. Say, for instance, on the 16th, there is a class at 10 o'clock at a room, the science room, for instance. Why not? Then we can go to our attendance layout. We could make a new record for the 16th. Then we're going to have a science class at 10 o'clock in the science room. And who is going to be there? Jane Doe is going to be there. And she is apparently late already. And we got John Doe, who is also late. No, they're not late. There. So we have 2 people attending the science class here. So if we go to their layout, we can see Jane Doe was at the science class, and John Doe was also at the science class. And if we go to our classes layout, then we have our science class. We click it here. We have 2 students attending. I think this is pretty simple, pretty basic, but I think it's a good start. If you have any questions, please let me